Look at your hands, look at the screen, look at the room around you. Something is wrong. It isn't that the colors are off or that the lighting is artificial. It's deeper. It's the sensation that you are a passenger, a ghost in a machine, looking out through two organic portholes at a world made of stuff. We've spent the last 2 decades obsessed with the wrong mystery. We talk about the simulation argument, Elon Musk's coin flip, Nick Bostrom's logic, the green code of the Matrix. We ask, is this reality real or fake? As if that's the most radical question we can pose. It isn't. The simulation debate is actually a security blanket. It's a comfortable, cozy bedtime story because it keeps one massive, ego-stroking assumption intact, that there is a you sitting inside a reality, and the only mystery is whether that reality is made of atoms or bits. It assumes the container is the problem, but the contents, the self, are solid. We are here to destroy that assumption. Physics went looking for the solid world. It peeked under the hood of matter, expecting to find the ultimate billiard balls, tiny, hard pieces of reality. It found nothing of the sort. Stuff is a category error. Down in the basement of reality, particles don't have fixed properties. They don't have locations. They have tendencies. They exist as a probability smear, a ghostly maybe scattered across space until the moment they are forced to show their hand. The floor beneath your feet isn't solid ground. It is a frantic, high-speed negotiation between quantum fields. It's a digital handshake that only happens when you press against it. You've been told you're an object moving through a world of other objects. That is the lie. Physics dismantled that clockwork universe a century ago. By the end of this, I'm going to give you a model of what you actually are. It is a model that no simulation argument, no AI uprising, and no existential heat death can touch. Not because it's a happy thought, but because it is the most rigorously defended, mathematically sound position in the current philosophy of physics. To find the truth, we have to start subtracting. We have to peel back the layers of the obvious until the bones of reality are exposed. Reach out and touch the table in front of you. It feels cold, hard, and undeniably there. But if we zoom in, past the grain of the wood, past the molecules, into the heart of the atom, the stuff vanishes. Standard physics doesn't see billiard balls, it sees quantum field theory. Particles aren't tiny pellets of matter, they are localized excitations in underlying fields. Imagine a vast, invisible ocean spanning the entire universe. A particle is just a ripple in that water. Your table is a collection of these ripples, held apart by nothing more than electromagnetic repulsion. You aren't touching a solid object, you are experiencing two force fields screaming at each other, refusing to occupy the same space. The solid world is a ghost story told by your sense of touch. But it gets weirder. We usually think that things have properties like position or spin even when we aren't looking. Einstein certainly thought so. He famously insisted that God does not play dice, believing there must be hidden variables that keep the world stable when our backs are turned. But he was wrong. Niels Bohr, in the Copenhagen interpretation, didn't just suggest the world is fuzzy. They proved that properties literally do not exist until an interaction occurs. In 1982, Alain Aspect's experiments with Bell's theorem drove the final nail into the coffin of local realism. The math is clear. The universe is not made of objects with inherent traits waiting to be discovered. It is a smear of possibilities. The moon isn't there in a fixed state of moonness until it is measured. Reality is indeterminate by design. It is a movie that only renders the frames you are currently watching. Now we turn the lens inward to the dissolution of the self. If the world outside is a holographic shimmer, surely the you watching it is solid, right? Neuroscience says otherwise. Your brain doesn't live in the present, it lives in a lag. It takes approximately 500 milliseconds for your biology to process sensory data and construct a narrative. By the time you experience a moment, that moment is already ancient history. You are watching a pre-recorded broadcast, edited for clarity. Even worse, the you who thinks they are making decisions is often the last person invited to the meeting. Benjamin Libet's readiness potential experiments showed that brain activity, the firing to move your hand, begins before you consciously decide to move it. The conscious I is not the author of your actions, it's a post hoc narrator. It's the press secretary for a government it doesn't actually control, explaining why the policy was a good idea after it's already been implemented. Look at what we've done. We have subtracted solid matter. We have subtracted fixed properties. We have even subtracted the self as the driver of the vehicle. The stage is empty. The actors are gone. The props have dissolved into ripples in an invisible sea. But if you strip away everything that can be dissolved, what is the one thing that can't be? Now that we've cleared the wreckage of the old world, we can finally look at the blueprint of the new one. This isn't mysticism, it's the cold, hard logic of the laboratory. We are going to look at 3 frameworks that, taken together, point to a reality far stranger than any science fiction. In 1996, physicist Carlo Rovelli proposed something that fundamentally broke the way we view facts. He suggested that quantum states are not absolute, they are relational. Think of it like this: an electron doesn't have a spin in a vacuum. It has a spin relative to the detector that measures it. But here's the glitch. To a second observer who hasn't interacted with that system yet, the electron and the detector are both still in a smear of probability. There is no God's eye view of the universe. There is no objective description of reality from the outside. Every property, every state, every fact is only a fact for someone or something. Reality is not a collection of independent objects. It is a shimmering web of relationships. Things don't exist in isolation, they exist in the handshake between them. You aren't an observer looking at a world, you are a node in a network of interactions. John Wheeler, the man who gave us the term black hole, spent his twilight years arguing that matter is a secondary shadow. His mantra was, it from bit. Every particle, every field, every tick of the clock derives its existence from the extraction of information, from binary, yes-no answers to physical questions. But Wheeler went further. He proposed the participatory universe. He viewed the universe as a self-exciting circuit. It is like an eye looking back at its own beginning, observing itself into existence. His delayed choice experiment proved this isn't just a thought exercise. It showed that a photon's past, the path it took millions of years ago, can be determined now by how we choose to measure it in the present. The past is not a finished book. It's a draft that we are currently editing. The universe is a conversation that requires your participation to stay real. Finally, we have the most mind-bending realization of modern physics, the holographic principle, emerging from the work of Jacob Bekenstein, Stephen Hawking, and Leonard Susskind. It's called the holographic principle. It states that the maximum amount of information contained in a region of space isn't determined by its volume, but by its surface area. This led to a radical proposal. Our entire 3D reality, including the chair you're sitting in and the stars above, may be a projection of information encoded on a distant 2D boundary. This isn't a metaphor. In string theory, this is a mathematical reality. It implies that the 3 dimensions we move through, length, width, depth, are not fundamental, they are emergent. Space itself is a user interface, a way for our systems to organize data. Look at the common thread. None of these frameworks describe the universe as a container filled with stuff. They describe a reality that is relational, participatory, and informational. If the universe isn't a place made of matter, but a process made of relationship and information, then we have to ask the most dangerous question of all. If that's what reality is, what exactly are you? We have reached the ledge. Behind us lies the wreckage of solid matter and fixed reality. In front of us is a void. But to move forward, we have to address the ghost that's been haunting every lab and every particle accelerator since the beginning. You. In philosophy, we call it the hard problem of consciousness. Coined by David Chalmers, it's the dividing line between what we know and what we cannot explain. Science is great at the easy problems. We can map how light hits your retina, how neurons fire in the visual cortex, and how your brain categorizes that data as a red apple. That's just biological computation. But none of that, literally zero, explains why there is something it is like to be you. Why does the redness of the apple feel like a quality? Why isn't it just silent data processing in the dark? This isn't a spiritual riddle. It is the open wound at the center of neuroscience. We can explain the function, but we cannot explain the experience. We've built a map of the world, but we forgot to explain why there's a traveler walking through it. The default setting of our culture is materialism. It's the belief that if you stack enough unconscious matter together, atoms, molecules, neurons, eventually, like a magic trick, consciousness pops out. They call it emergence. They say consciousness is to the brain what heat is to fire or what the wave is to a stadium of fans. But look closer. This explanation explains nothing. It's a linguistic placeholder for a miracle. There is no mathematical or logical bridge that connects moving matter to subjective feeling. This is the explanatory gap. How does a quantitative process, firing neurons, create a qualitative result, the smell of rain? You can't get feeling out of stuff any more than you can get a symphony out of a pile of sheet music without a player. At what point does a complex machine suddenly turn the lights on? Materialism is a house of cards built on the assumption that matter is the real thing and consciousness is the extra thing. But we've already seen that matter isn't solid, so why are we trying to build a foundation out of ghosts? Now, we flip the script. This is the core of analytic idealism, a framework championed by philosophers like Bernardo Kastrup. Instead of trying to explain how dead matter produces consciousness, we accept the only thing we actually know for certain. Consciousness is the fundamental substrate. In this model, the physical world isn't something that contains consciousness. The physical world is what experience looks like from the outside. Think of a whirlpool in a river. To an observer, the whirlpool looks like a distinct, solid object. You can measure its diameter, its speed, its location. But if you try to take the whirlpool home, you find nothing. It is made entirely of water. It isn't a thing, it's a behavior of the river. Your brain is that whirlpool. It isn't a generator of consciousness. It is a localizer. It is a temporary structure in the field of universal consciousness that creates a bounded, individual perspective. It filters the infinite down to a me. It creates a small, private room so that the universe can experience what it's like to be a person in a place at a time. When the whirlpool dissipates, the water doesn't die. It just stops being a whirlpool. It returns to the flow. You are not a thing that has experiences. You are experience itself, temporarily shaped into the appearance of a thing. Take a breath. Let that sink in. You aren't a biological machine trying to survive in a cold, indifferent universe. The universe is a conscious field, and you are the specific way it is feeling itself right now. If the solid world is actually a relational web of information and interface, then the simulation debate finally collapses. Because if consciousness is the fundamental substrate, then the distinction between real and simulated is a dead end. Whether the universe is made of atoms or bits, it is still an appearance within you. We've spent our lives terrified of being simulated because we fear it makes us fake. We treat ourselves like characters in a game who might be turned off at any moment. But look at the physics again. The character isn't what's real. The rendering process is. The existential anxiety you feel isn't because the world is a simulation. It's because you've been trying to find your identity inside the interface rather than in the awareness that allows the interface to exist. You've been looking for yourself in the pixels, ignoring the light that makes them visible. This is where your agency returns. If reality is a participatory, self-exciting circuit, then you are not a passive observer of a pre-recorded show. You're a co-author of the unfolding data. Meaning isn't something you find tucked away in a corner of the simulation. It is the quality of the attention you bring to the screen. You are the only thing in the universe that can provide the one thing a simulation cannot, the felt quality of existence. The math can describe the wave, but only you can be the ocean. We've traveled from the glitchy uncertainty of the quantum world to the edge of the holographic boundary and finally into the depths of your own awareness. Now we land. Look at the room again. Look at the chair, the window, the dust motes dancing in the light. In the beginning, we looked at this scene and asked if it was real or a simulation. We imagined you were like a coin inside a jar, and the only question was what the jar was made of. But now you see the truth. There is no jar. You were never inside reality. That is the old, tired model of a world that doesn't exist. You are what reality is doing at this specific location. You aren't a guest in a container called space. You are the space in which the universe is currently performing the act of being human. The simulation was always too small a theory. It was just another way to keep the world separate from you, a way to pretend there was a real world somewhere else, far away behind a curtain. The truth is much stranger, much closer, and much more profound. The universe isn't the container. Awareness is the container. The universe is what appears inside it. Every direction we looked, through the lens of the physicist, the mathematician, and the philosopher, we found the same thing. We looked for the smallest piece of the world and found relationships. We looked for the edge of space and found information. We looked for an objective reality and found that the observer is woven into the very fabric of the math. It is a persistent, unexplained echo of a truth that ancient wisdom has whispered for millennia. Science didn't find a cold, dead machine. It found a participatory mirror. The relief is this: you don't have to find your way out of the simulation. You don't have to escape the matrix or fear the off switch. You are the source of the light hitting the screen.